Fourth deception, Jesus Christ is a Muslim. No, that's what they say. Jesus is coming back a second time as a Muslim. He will appear on the Golan Heights. He will come down from the Golan Heights. He will meet the Antichrist in battle, and he will kill the Antichrist. And by the way, you know that the Antichrist is a Jew, in case you didn't know that. And by the way, you know how we know that a Jew cannot be the Antichrist? What's the sign of the Antichrist? 666, right? Well, Jews are 599. Anyway, sorry about that. Then Jesus Christ, the Muslim, goes up to Jerusalem, and he prays with 400,000 Muslim believers on the Temple Mount. And then he comes down from the Temple Mount, and he says, he comes down from the Temple Mount and breaks the crosses, destroys all the churches of the Christians, destroys all the synagogues of the Jews. That's on the Day of Judgment. And then on that Day of Judgment, all the Jews and the Christians, listen carefully. Now, I don't care what kind of a Christian you are, and I don't care what kind of a Jew one may be if a Jew is watching this program, but in the eyes of Islam, we're one people. We are the people of the book. And on the Day of Judgment, all these people of the book, the Jews and the Christians, who have not converted to Islam, who have not embraced Allah as the greatest of all the gods, remember the pagan gods, and have not embraced Muhammad as the greatest of all the prophets, will have their throats slit by Jesus Christ, the Muslim. So is that the same Jesus that the Christians revere? Now, if anybody doesn't understand that, I have a $3 Clinton bill in my wallet, and I'll show you that's the Jesus Christ of Islam. So Jesus of Islam is not Jesus of Christianity. And the fifth and final deception of Islam is that their book, the Koran, is the divine, infallible word of Allah to Muhammad. Now, let's look a little bit at the Koran. The Jews had the Old Testament. The Christians had the New Testament. And the Muslims said that if the Jews have this and the Christians have that, and we are the greatest of all the religions, we need to have a book too. But they had a problem, that their people were all illiterate. They were desert, Arab, Bedouin, and nomads. They didn't know how to read or write. Now, you have to remember, Muhammad died, there was no written Quran. What Muhammad handed down was oral teachings. About 70, 80 years after he died, they decided that they were going to kidnap for themselves a Christian priest, probably from the Syrian church in Antioch, or from the Armenian Orthodox Church, and they kidnapped a rabbi from Babylon. Remember, Babylonia had fallen to Islam, and you had the Jewish Talmudic Academy there. So they kidnapped for themselves a Jew and a Christian, put them in a pit, put them in a dungeon, and said, you guys are going to write a holy book for us, or we're going to kill you. Now, if you write the holy book for us, we'll let you go. If you don't write the holy book for us, we will kill you. So they wrote the holy book for the Muslims, and then they killed them anyway. They were double-crossers, which is what they are today, too. By the way, we're going to talk about this big time in the next part of the program, that Islam is a religion of lying, constant breaking of agreements and covenants. So let me give you one or two examples. I know we're already coming to the end of this section, but you know the rabbi wrote the Quran with the numerology of 19. Now, I know there are many of you who follow Grant Jeffrey, The Signature of God, the numerologies in the Bible, in the Hebrew Bible, or Drosden's book, The Bible Codes. I really have never really gotten into it, but in my book is Fanatic Islam, A Global Threat, which Prophecy Club has been promoting for the last 6 years. In chapter 19, I talk about the numerology of 19. 19 is a very Jewish number, and the rabbi embedded 19 letters, 19 words, 19 verses, 19 chapters. You have 117 chapters in the Quran. So you have the multiples of 19 throughout the Quran. However, there are 2 verses which do not have 19, and they praise Muhammad over Allah. So there's a problem in Islam. You can attack Allah, they won't kill you. But if you attack Muhammad, they will kill you. Secondly, there are 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet. And so you have 22 chapters of the 117 chapters in the Quran which start with the letters A-L-M. Now you ask any Muslim, they say, that's divine, that's mystical. We don't know what it means. But you ask any rabbi from the Middle East, and they will tell you that the Quran was written by a rabbi. Everybody knows that. And ALM means one of 2 things. It means Ani lo ma'amin, I don't believe. So the 22 most important chapters in the Quran start with I don't believe. Or the same letters could also mean Eile lo mamash. These verses mean nothing. The rabbi completely self-destructed the Quran from within. And by the way, you know, Jesus teaches in the gospel, thou shalt not kill. Well, you know, it says in the Quran, thou shalt not kill any man whom Allah has not deemed that you should kill, except for a just cause. So the whole Quran, there's no 2 commandments, love the Lord thy God, love thy fellow as thyself, which are the 2 most important commandments. 10 commandments, forget about it, not in the Quran. Okay, you know that we have just spoken about the 5 deceptions of Islam, and I explained before in the earlier part of the program that when people talk about the roadmap to peace, it's very important for people to understand that what we're facing in the Middle East and what America is facing since 9/11 is not a war about Jerusalem, it's not a war about territories, it's not a war about settlements, it's not a war about refugees, it's not a war about a Palestinian state. This is a war about religion. This is a war about God. And it's God versus Satan, good versus evil, light versus darkness. I don't know if you all remember, but on September 13th, 1993, there was an agreement signed on the White House lawn between Bill Clinton, our then Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, rest in peace, and Yasser Arafat. This was known as the Oslo I, Oslo II peace agreement with the Palestinians. And immediately afterwards, Yasser Arafat flew to South Africa, and there he spoke in a mosque. And he was almost lynched in the mosque. And he was attacked by his fellow Muslims. And they said to him, how could you make a peace agreement with the Jews? There can be no peace agreement with the Jews. Islam must annihilate the Jews. This is what the Islamic religion is about. Kill the Jew on Saturday, kill the Christian on Sunday. And Yasser Arafat's response was, hey guys, you know, chill out. I'm only doing what the Prophet Muhammad did. There was a war between these various Arabian tribes in Mecca. And there was a pagan Arabian tribe called Quraysh. And there was an agreement that Muhammad signed with them called the Hudaybiyah Agreement. And this agreement was for 10 years. But after 2 years, Muhammad broke it because Muhammad was ready to break it. Muslims make agreements, and they break them when they're ready to break them. They make the agreements when they're weak, and then when they have been strengthened and they're ready to continue the battle, they break their agreements. And so Yasser Arafat said, the agreement that I signed with the Israelis, with the Jews, is no different than the agreement that the Prophet Muhammad signed with the tribe of Quraysh at Hudaybiyah. And we will break the agreement with the Jews when we're ready to. In other words, any agreement signed with the Muslims is not worth the paper it's written on.